Hello, and welcome to Book Reviews Kill, a podcast about fantasy, sci-fi, and horror novels. I'm Evan.
And I'm Chad.
And today you are joining us for a recap and discussion of The Empire of Gold, Book 3 in the Daevabad trilogy by S.A. Chakraborty. Chakraborty stuck the landing here.
Stuck the landing. What a chaotic and satisfying conclusion.
Yeah, I was pretty happy with a lot of the end of this story for the most part. Lots of closure on storylines that didn't feel forced or contrived or anything. Some awesome depictions of magical and mythological creatures, which obviously we love. We love that on the Book Reviews Kill podcast, of course.
Oh man, bring it on.
Good amount of fun banter that didn't drag too much before ramping the action back up. We got to move around quite a bit more and see some new places. This worked.
This did work. Yeah, I don't want my battles to be like a Marvel movie that's just all quippy. I want it to be serious and heavy and weighty and impactful. And this was. There was very serious things happening, but also there was like things being revealed, historical, very strong, important historical facts about main characters being revealed amidst this chaos that is the last battle. And it was done well. I have some thoughts on it, but it was done very well. It was a satisfying conclusion.
So much emotion behind everything.
Oof.
Every action. I mean, I like the ending sequence of Kingdom Copper more than this one, but it makes sense that we'd need a cliffhanger before the final book and a more kind of wrapped up feeling as everything ends in this book. But that's the thing, is that parts of the whole ending of this did feel like it's wrapped up.
Yep.
You know, it was kind of like, whoop, it's done.
Period. Nice.
But it's such a mix of like, you know, a little bit of it felt rushed, but also it felt right.
Yeah, with so many different points of view and characters, I don't know how you could have not made some of it feel rushed. Like, she just needed to end some character lines, you know, because we needed to like sail into the sunset, so to speak, with a person. We couldn't do that with many. And so she was just kind of like end, here we go.
And also, to a certain extent, and I stress the certain extent here with a couple different characters, I liked pretty much every character in this trilogy from a critical perspective, if not a personal one, because like I said, it's like one or two. Anyway, Nari, Ali, Zainab, Jamshid, Muntadir, Hatset, even Ghassan, in the couple books before this, I mean, when he was still alive, all distinct from each other, all of them with their own desires and fears and dreams. Just terrific character work in these books.
They felt like they lived off the page. They weren't just like only what we were seeing. They all had their own special flavor and like sauce that they bring to the story to add to it. I have to give it to Chakraborty. That would be so difficult to not only have so many separate characters and have them each one be unique and fully realized and a part of the story adding to it, but also to not let all of those characters kind of get the best of you and just leave your writer being like, what's going on, you know?
Yeah, she kept it all really in line. And like we said, you know, some really satisfactory endings here that really surprised me. But I was happy. I was really happy with them. But yeah, let's get right into the recap.
All right, let's do it.
The book begins with Nari and Ali finding themselves on the shore of the Nile. Ali is having chest pains with Suleiman's seal digging into his heart, and Nari's magic is no longer working. With the help of some fishermen, Nari manages to get an unconscious Ali to Jakob's apothecary in Cairo. There they spend a few relaxing weeks recovering and deciding their next move. Though Nari is finding peace in the rhythms of her old home, she is haunted by the knowledge that the loved ones she left behind and the people who considered her a savior are at the mercy of a new tyrant in Daevabad. After refusing an offer from Jakob to stay in Cairo and run the apothecary, Nari and Ali purchase a small river craft and set off, knowing the people of Daevabad are depending on them. They make their way to Hatset's house in Tanitri, hoping to rally support, gather information, and strategize their next move. There they are reunited with Jamshid and begin plans to retake Daevabad. Dara struggles with Manaiza's brutal quelling of the rebellious peoples of Daevabad and is nearly killed rescuing one of his soldiers. Manaiza loses trust in Dara after discovering he had a secret meeting with Zainab. The princess has been leading the city's opposition, and Manaiza has been desperate to capture her. Afraid and knowing his magic is the only thing preventing a violent uprising by the peoples of Daevabad, she forces him into submission by donning his ring. Once again forced back into slavery, Dara is compelled to destroy parts of the city, unable to stop until the people give up the princess. Nari and Jamshid perform surgery on Ali to remove Suleiman's seal from his heart. He has been called to the Marid and wants to prevent Suleiman's seal from falling into their hands. Though he almost dies, the plan is successful and the ring is removed. Nari is able to magic him back to health. Hoping to gain the support of the Marid, Ali sets off to meet the legendary sea creature Tiamat and makes a deal with her. He sacrifices his fire magic as a token of commitment to Tiamat and gains access to his hereditary water magic. Nari is abducted by the magical Peri, who have sworn to never intervene in the lives of mortals. They are afraid for their own safety from Dara's seemingly endless power. They task Nari with killing him and give her a shedu to ride and a magic dagger to pierce his heart. Nari flies back to Daevabad. Upon meeting Manaiza, Nari is subdued by Ifrit blood magic and her true name. Ali arrives in Daevabad with a fleet of Marid-revived ships filled with Devas who rallied to his call to reclaim their precious city. Nari wakes up outside the city walls, captured by the Ifrit, and sees Viseresh kill Esma. Viseresh turns on her, but she undoes the name magic by realizing the name she gave herself. Viseresh runs away with the chain of Jinn vessels. A bloody battle ensues, the tide surging back and forth as all parties struggle for control. Nari tricks her way out of her deal with the Peri by attempting to kill herself and makes a new deal that doesn't involve her killing Dara. She also frees Dara, who is able to chase the Ifrit and Manaiza's remaining forces from Daevabad. The book ends with the city back under Gaziri control. Muntadir hopes to step aside and live a quieter life with his lover Jamshid by his side. Wanting nothing to do with ruling the city, Zainab looks forward to spreading her wings and seeing the world. Nari fulfills her dream of independence and running her hospital in Daevabad. She and Muntadir happily divorce. Dara, knowing he will be forever feared and hated in Daevabad, says an emotional goodbye to Nari and leaves to hunt down the Ifrit and free the world's remaining enslaved Jinn. With hope thick in the air, the people of Daevabad finally find peace under the rule of Ali, who is working hard to bring down racial divisions and make it a peaceful city welcoming to all. We forgot in the recap here to say that Dara shoots Manaiza in the neck with an arrow. While I was reading that, I was like, oh, we forgot to say how Manaiza died.
Kind of important.
Yeah, it was very important. Dara just shoots her right in the neck. And you know what? Let's go right to probably the most talked about, the highest point. Let's talk about Dara.
Okay.
Let's just get right into Dara.
Right.
Boy.
Yeah,
Okay.
and that's going to remove a lot of my complaints right away. Let's get this out of the way with the Dara conversation. What a bad, good, bad, bad guy, good, bad guy. You know,
my God, yeah.
my gosh, like,
I don't know. I don't know what to say.
Chakraborty has some commitment problems, in my opinion.
I don't know, though. I don't
refusing to kill characters and having Dara refuse to like accept who he is. Like he's kind of an idiot. He's like, am I on the bad team? Like, yes, Dara. Like, how many innocents do you need to see die at your own hand? People that you love, lives ruined before you're like, man, I guess, shucks, I should have. Maybe I chose poorly. It's like, yeah, man.
I'm not a fan of Dara. I mean, but I'm also kind of a fan in a weird. Not a fan. It's just he was brainwashed as a child, super young when he committed a bunch of atrocities. Mm-hmm. Obviously, he had a terrible life even before being enslaved, but also he admits in the end that he was acting on his own free will. On page 712, Nari asks, I remembered this because I knew how important this was. On page 712, Nari asks Dara if he was being controlled by Manaiza all this time, and he says no. And it's like, yeah, it would be, I don't know. I have so.
It was his overbearing sense. I mean, okay, he's slaved literally for some of it, but for the other part, it's his incredibly powerful sense of duty that was just, I guess, beat into him from his youth. He never betrays his Nahids. Like, no, a good Jinn always follows what they say.
I think we can both agree that Dara is tragic. I think two things can be true at the same time, right? Like, Dara is very tragic, but also I would never hang out with this guy. I don't understand. I don't. Okay, so just a little side note here. I'm going to talk about Nari and Dara because it bugged me, but I can understand Nari getting feelings for Dara. I really can. She's young. This is all exciting. He's so hot and kind of a mysterious, like centuries old bad boy. You know, that's all fine to me. That's all fine. But
Yeah.
Dara just kind of decides he loves her in the second book. You know what I mean? Like he just
Oh,
there wasn't like, but when Dara and Nari get to Daevabad initially, they stop talking almost. You know what I mean? Like there's no, I don't see it. I can totally see it from Nari's perspective to a degree, not to the degree that it
kinda.
is, but with Dara, it's just like I would die for her, and it's like, dude, you hung out with her for like a couple weeks 5 years ago. Get over it, man. Like this is, I don't know. It's I
Yeah,
don't.
I see what you're saying kind of from Nari's perspective, even though I still feel it's a little rushed. Like, okay, this is her first time, she's swooped away by this
Yeah, put
magical,
yourself in
super hot
like a
warrior. But I
19-year
mean,
old girl's
she's also
shoes. I mean,
trying
like,
to get rid of him and escape him for most of it, and then all of a sudden switched up. They kind of hook up right before being attacked. But from Dara's perspective, I totally 100% agree. It makes no sense. Like he's lived so long, this couple weeks, and all
it's
of a sudden
ridiculous.
he's infatuated. He's so in love. Their
Never
whole
met anybody
relationship,
like her.
yeah, their whole relationship exists way more in in their memory than it did in reality. In fact, I think we literally got more words about it in the past than it was in the present.
I saw so many reviews that said, I wish Dara and Nari had gotten together. And it's just like, wait,
Ugh.
what? Like, why? I mean, it's so. Like, they wouldn't have even had a good relationship anyway. He wasn't even right for her.
Yeah, I was so tired of his idiotic false sense of morality, poorly forming this barrier between him and the guilt of his former actions, some forced and some not. It's like, I don't care what you were forced to do in the past. You're not being forced right now, and you're doing a poor job lying to yourself that you're doing the right thing. You're clearly not doing the right thing, and the red flags are abundant.
Yeah, and he's like caught in this cycle where he's like, oh, I just did this really horrible atrocity. I'm so terrible. Well, I'm going to go do another one. And it's just like, wait, you're literally not being controlled right now. But that's the thing with Dara, though, is it's like he has been like groomed to be this way. You can't throw all of the responsibility on him. Like the amount of trauma that he's gone through. That's why he's such a compelling character, but also so frustrating to read. Like he's one of the most frustrating characters to
Oh,
read
he's so
that I've
frustrating.
read in like at least a year of reading books, and like I just like
Just want to
I
smack him.
can't.
He's like a little kid. And it's like, I get that he's been groomed, but man, how many thousands of years needs to go by for you to ungroom it?
Well, I mean, he was enslaved for quite a bit of that, but I would ask, how many thousands of people do you need to kill? Like, and
That's
that's
way
what bugged
better.
me about the last conversation between him and Nari, when Nari's just like, how can I keep being mad at you when you say cute stuff like that or whatever? And it's like, dude, this guy murdered thousands of people. Like, it's not like he dropped, a piano on somebody because he was drunk or something. It's not,
Right.
he didn't like run into a fucking fire hydrant and like run up his tab with the city or
Right.
something.
Accidentally flood
It's like
someone's home.
no, dude, like this guy literally murdered thousands of people,
Right.
and he devastated this entire beautiful city of brass. He's done so much that, not just in the last like few years, like, not if you forget literally everything else, if you forget literally everything else, just the things he's done in the last few years is so awful that shouldn't even merit a goodbye.
Yeah. It's like a get ye gone. We are way better off without you, as would the world be. And it's like, he's the only person with any amount of magical power for a large chunk of this book. And when after he goes and saves his archer soldier, which was awesome, by the way, I really loved that scene. But he gets back, and then Miniza is like chiding him, and then he instantly like is like, "Oh, I'm like so sorry," and she's like, "Yeah, you better be." And then you need to stay in your room for like a couple. She like literally rooms him. It's like,
Yeah.
what? It's like she has no power. She doesn't even have his ring at this point. And he's just like, okay, I guess I'll just accept my lot being your tool, even though he's got all the power. You should have like slammed her up against the wall, but like, no, I've seen some really big red flags for you, starting with like the killing, like the use of your crazy magical poison to kill all these innocents to take over the city in the first place. Like, I don't know. I was so frustrated and tired of his excuses and his just being like, it's like he wanted someone in charge of him so he didn't have to directly feel the result of his actions. It was like the barrier between him and like his guilt was like the leader who told him to do it.
I think there is a line somewhere in the book where someone calls him out about that, but I can't remember exactly what the phrasing was. Dara is definitely complex, but I wouldn't say that he's complex enough to let him off the hook for everything he's done. And that's kind of what Nari does. Like, it's kind of what
Yeah.
happens at the end of this is she's just like, oh, cool, you're gonna go take care of all the Ifrit. That's whatever. Like,
She's even sad about him leaving. She's like, oh, but he's like, yeah, it's going to be like thousands of years before I can be remembered as the hero again. Like, you will never be remembered as the hero of this tale, my man.
and he was so ignorant of the actual lay of the land in Daevabad when he and Manyza took over. Like, the people didn't welcome them with open arms at all. He is so delusional, and he's got Manyza leading him around in this delusion too. And I mean, don't even get me started on Manyza. At least Manyza's like, well,
At least
she's
she
like,
commits.
she like leans into it. Yeah.
Yeah, but like when he's like, okay, I'm gonna be rebellious now and start rescuing my soldiers. Like, okay, now you're going to be rebellious. Like that doesn't mean anything now. Like burn in hell, dude.
Yeah, it's kind of like a better late than never arc for Dara, and it's just like,
Mhm.
meh. All right, that's enough on Dara, I think.
Okay.
I'm glad that Dara and Nari didn't end up together. That's like my,
Yeah, can I just say Ali and Nari called it?
yeah, you did. Yeah, you did. Let's talk about Nari.
Okay, while the Dara and Nari relationship did not feel very realized or like real, I did feel like the Ali and Nari relationship was. It took its time. It was slow. It was awkward, sometimes too awkward and lengthy, but like it was earned, and I really liked that whole thing for the most part of could have been removed some
Yeah,
of
there's
it.
like parts where Nari is just envisioning a life of like a room full of books and tea and like discussions, and it's like, yeah, because you two actually make some sense here. You and
Right.
Dara literally make no sense. Like none of that makes sense other than that Dara is hot. Like and
Yes.
that's why I don't like that. Anyway, I'm getting back on the Dara thing. But I have some stuff to say about Nari. First of all, I wonder if Nari would have ended up like Manyza if she had continued living under Ghassan's thumb for a couple more centuries.
Ooh, interesting.
Yeah.
You
Like,
know,
what do you think about that?
I mean, we all think that we would be Schindler, right? We all would be the good guy, but the reality is that we probably wouldn't be. And, the average person succumbs to evil a lot more than we think. But she is pretty resolute. I think she's such a fighter. She probably wouldn't have made it that many years. She would have like rebelled too hard and
Yeah.
like been killed. Like she would have needed to be put
Yeah, she would have gone
down.
down fighting for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think she's too much of a fighter to fully have enough time transpire for her to make that switch and get so jaded and so angry to have like the hatred driver.
Yeah, Nari's such a well-rounded character. I mean, she went from like the beginning of this trilogy, she was like pretty insecure with her abilities and stuff. She was so like fresh into this place, didn't know what the
Hmm.
hell was going on, and just becomes over the years so much more adept and so much more on top of things. And I think a really good example of that is when even in this book, we just wanted to look at this one book. In the beginning of this book, she's in Cairo and doing surgery, and she's so insecure about it, and so like I can't. She literally believes she cannot do something.
Right. And she even kills a person, making it worse.
Right. Yeah, and it's all very well done. And then towards the end of this book, she does literal heart surgery,
Before that, she even does brain surgery without any tools or without magic.
but she's so resolute. She kind of, I think it was an Ollie point of view chapter when Ollie said like, we need to get this thing out of my heart. She kind of like stopped being his friend and started being a doctor. And it was such a change from her working with like Nisreen in books 1 and 2, where she kind of like Nisreen was just like, come on, we got to get to work. We got to keep training. We got to keep doing this stuff. And Nari's just like, I suck at all of this. I'm terrible. So I really
Right.
liked that. Was a very, very good way of showing that arc.
And kind of mirrors the larger point being made of like sometimes you need to divorce yourself from your personal attachment to the people around you in order to make the right decision for what's best for everyone.
Yeah, such a great character. I really liked Nari reuniting with her grandfather at the end. That was just such a nice
Yeah.
touch, learning that she was at least part Egyptian. Um, a bit of the found family arc here because she was so alone at the beginning of the series, which we never really talked about, just like how alone she was, and then continued on being so alone, even in her marriage to Muntadir. And now she's got family and a support system and a purpose, and it's just Nari was, in my opinion, Nari's the best arc in this whole series, rightly so.
And you just saying that made me realize, it made me give a little bit more like, okay, to Nari's infatuation with early Dara, because she was so alone. You know, a person who's that alone would have been kind of desperate to like latch on to the first hot magical creature that
I know
whisks
I
her
would,
away to
yeah. I
Magic
mean, I'd
Town.
be.
Yeah, so that
I'm
that
not
makes more
even
sense to
really
me
like
now.
that alone right now, and I would still probably be like, oh, a hot gin, like let's see where this road goes, you know. But yeah, Nari, fantastic. Ali, Ali in this book. And I think dancing from character to character for this discussion is probably good because this
Mhm.
is such a character driven story. I mean, it's fairly
Absolutely.
plot driven too, but the characters are where it's at. And Ali, let's do a little bit of a compliment sandwich here.
Okay.
Um, I love how nerdy Ali is. You know, when
Yes.
he's wandering around Cairo and he's so excited about the market and all these new things that he's seeing, and he's
He's like
so
maps.
right. He's so inquisitive, and it really shows through other parts of this trilogy too. People really benefit from it. You know, it's also kind of a hindrance sometimes, but it's good. This is
Mhm.
Ollie's personality. As much as I liked Ollie, I was starting to get a little annoyed with how immature he was. Like
Yes.
I totally understand that he was raised a certain way, he has certain convictions, but damn, like after so much, just get on with it or don't. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like
And
just
his brother is Muntadir. Like, come on. You haven't picked up a few pointers from Big Bro here. Like, he was so slow to make moves and totally caught up in this, like, my brother's wife, I'm having bad thoughts about her. And it was
It's like,
like,
dude, you're already having
man,
the bad thoughts.
yeah, they were
Like, just
forced into it. Like,
yeah,
a little bit would have been great, would have been like an excellent realization of like his like core character and that kind of like insecure, very morally driven, value based person that he is. But like, by page 600, I was like, make a move, Ali.
yeah. But speaking of making moves, though, I mean, and this is the other slice of bread on my sandwich is that I mean, you got to hand it to him. Like the guy is so brave going into the Marid like headquarters, basically. What did you think about Sobek, the crocodile guy? I loved it.
Oh,
I thought that was
I
so
loved
cool.
it. I loved it. It was just magical journey juice at its greatest. Like it was great that we got a little flavor of him on the Nile because like the Nile scene, let's be honest, was getting a little long. Like how many like glistening bodies swimming in the river and
I
like
liked it.
okay,
I
okay.
thought it was
But
good.
one of my favorite quotes that I'm gonna read you was so he's talking, he's having dirty thoughts about Nari on the boat,
How
and his
could you,
response
Ali?
to Nari telling him that she needed to inspect him to see if using all that water magic had hurt him. His response is yes, thrilled at the prospect of her hands on his body. Then immediately, no, no, Ali said, just as swiftly cursing the entire concept of love.
Oh, I remember that the cursing the entire concept of
Yeah, and like thrilled at the prospect of her hands on his body. Like that was great, but it needed to
yeah.
be just that scene pretty quick. And then I think the crocodile god showing up was like an excellent exit portal from Nile scene. Thank God we just get to magic our way to hot seat. Hot fit? Hot
Hot
seat?
set.
Hot set.
Yeah, the Marid in this book were pretty cool. I liked finding out more about them. They felt much more like primordial almost. Like
Mm-hmm.
them like much older.
Yeah, a little Borgy as well, with like all of their thoughts being shared and kind of being a one organism, kind of, you know.
Another note here that I have is that I loved Mishmish, the Shedu.
Mishmish was fantastic.
Mishmish should have been around in book one. We should have had like that. This was not enough time for us to be able to love Mishmish the way that Mishmish deserved to be loved.
He deserved a lot more page time.
Mishmish, if anyone was done dirty, Chakraborty, if you're listening, uh, Mishmish was done dirty.
Mishmish was done dirty. Yeah. I'm glad that he stuck around though. Like she has Mishmish, the like
Yeah,
flying magical Sheju for
yeah,
the
but
rest
I
of
don't.
all.
Yeah, but I don't.
Yeah.
That's the point. Another thing. I don't. The Perry's intervention at the end of the book was just kind of weird.
And pointless. Like
Was it
it doesn't
pointless? Like
succeed.
let's talk
Well,
this through. Like let's. I
okay,
don't.
so they whisk Nari away, and they're like, "We're afraid of Dara because he has primordial Jinn powers after being brought back to life by Meniza." And he like made a statement earlier in the book about like wanting to kill the winds or something. And so they're like, he actually is flirting with power that could actually destroy us. We, however, can't directly interfere with mortals, so we need him taken out, and we're
So
going
we're
to
gonna
use
directly
Nari.
interfere with mortals by giving you a
Yeah.
shedu and a knife.
Yeah. And so they arm her
That's
with the
a
Shedu and the
technicality.
knife. Yeah. And then return her. And that allows her. And then she poisons Jamshed, which was a little weird, to like get him to out of her way so
I
she can
forgot
fly
about
to
that. But
Daevabad.
then later, like during like the battle and stuff, it's like, and then like Jamshid's there because she totally changed her mind or whatever, and it was just like,
Yeah.
what? Okay, like why did you? Okay, whatever.
Right. Like why? Okay, fine. And all the parties are there at the end. And so weirdly, she's about to kill Dara, but then she's like, no, he doesn't deserve this. And for the last little bit of time, he has been being totally controlled. And so she turns the knife on herself, which would mean that the Perry are interfering, having given someone a weapon that they're like, they would be the direct result of like a human's death,
Yeah,
I guess.
yeah.
And so they're like
It's a
forced to
loophole.
renegotiate.
Oh, that yeah, like the fact that she would, yeah. I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah, and so it's just like I don't know. It seemed like an unnecessary complication in an already pretty complicated end story.
Was it just for Nari to get the shedu? Was that all that that was?
I
Because
guess.
I
And
guess
then
she
like
could have just like found one. Like
yeah,
maybe I don't know.
yeah.
Probably not actually. Like shedu seems like a more like a rarer animal than
Have one of the like owl people or something show up and give it to her. Remember from the first book? That
those
one
are the
guy who was
Perry.
really cool. Oh, he was the Perry. Oh,
Yeah, you
okay.
just put that together.
Yeah, well, I didn't remember. I just knew that
Yeah, it
he
was like
died, you
barely.
know?
It was like barely in the first book. Yeah,
Yeah, oh, he was
yeah. The
Perry.
Perry
Okay.
kind of like cap off each end of this trilogy. They're not really around for that much of it.
Yeah, they just kind of confused me.
What did you think about Daevabad kind of ending up with a more kind of like democratic system?
Okay. I think the power sharing idea at the end was a really cool change, but it was kind of a weak representation of it. Like it was a great idea, but just not fully realized. Like I don't need a whole system of governance being explained to me at the end of the book. Like that's fine, but just like I don't know, just being like, and Ollie's thinking about sharing some power. It was like maybe have him just totally disband the whole monarchy and have them just set up like, okay, we're gonna move forward with elected representatives from each race and tribe of peoples within Daevabad, and just have a ruling
Yeah, but
council.
they'll work their way up to that though. I mean, like I see what you're saying for sure. I mean, but it's like a lot of the rest of the world is moving away from monarchy. This is the early 1800s, right? We had like the American Revolution, the French Revolution. We're moving away from this system of government, and the Jinn are somewhat influenced by humans, but not really. And like it makes sense that it would be like, all right, let's just start. We'll start off slow. We're gonna start figuring this out. It was a really nice, like ambiguous place for the book to end because I didn't want any of that. You know,
Yeah,
it's like we're at the end. You know, like
yeah,
we
it
can
was
just
enough. You're
assume.
right.
Yeah, everything's like they're good.
Yeah,
You know
it
what I
was
mean? They're
like they're
good.
gonna like Ali and Nari's gonna have babies, and they're gonna rule Daevabad forever, and it's gonna be peaceful and wonderful, and like eventually form a council, I guess.
What I'm wondering though is, so the Shafit are half Jinn, right? Half Deva or whatever.
Right.
Not Deva, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
The Shafit, but there seem to be a lot, if not a lot more of them, there will be a lot more of them. It's kind of like in Harry Potter, where like the bloodlines are starting to like delude, you know what I mean, or dilute, you know, because like if you get like two Shafit and they have a baby,
Right
then
now we
like
have a
that
quarter.
baby, yeah, exactly, and then
Then
like
we have
two
an eighth
quarter,
and the
yeah, exactly.
16th.
So it's like,
Yeah.
and it seems like the magic in this series is kind of running its course as well. Even Dara in his like true Deva form or whatever, like Super Saiyan Deva form, is like not as powerful as the previous ones had been originally.
Right.
So I think that like magic is kind of like seeping out, and like I kind of thought about it for a while, and I was like, I wonder if this whole thing is just going to kind of dissipate over the next few centuries. You know?
Okay. I just was hit with this realization. I think in the renegotiating her deal with the Perry, that's how magic came back to Daevabad, where she was like, and you will return magic to all the Devas.
Oh,
I'm pretty sure that's how they get all their magic back.
But my point is that they're eventually going to lose it anyway,
Right, because the bloodline's going to be watered down.
or not. I don't
Do
know.
the
There's
Shafiq have
another book.
magic?
There's another book that just came out in this world.
I mean,
Chakraborty like just released it.
in my opinion, the only reason to not have Dara die a meaningful sacrificial death is so we can get Adventures of Dara
Redeeming
book.
himself.
Yeah,
Just like
redeeming
a
himself,
whole
like
book of
flying
Dara
about.
being
Yeah,
super awesome. He's
yeah.
just like
I would be
buying
pretty
people
cool with
drinks.
that. Adventuring and like freeing other Jins from enslavement, and that would be pretty cool. Hunting
I'd
down
read, yeah,
Viseresh.
I'd read a whole book for that. Yeah,
Yeah, same.
definitely. Maybe we could talk to Chakraborty about it.
What did you think about the mechanism used to free Nari with the whole Ifrit taking her out with the name magic? And then they appear outside the city, and Asma gets axed by Viseresh. And then Nari's like, but my name is not that, it's my own. And she breaks the chains. And what was your thoughts on that?
I don't know, because is it Nari? Like her name
Nari's the
is
name
Nari.
she gave herself, which
So
is
was
how
the
she's able to
power
undo.
right? But everybody was like calling her Nari all this whole
Right.
trilogy, right? So it's like, did everyone like have power over her for this whole trilogy? Like, no.
Oh, yeah, right? Because that's her true name.
Was the maybe the magic was in her realizing that it was her true name or
Okay, because I
something?
mean, she does say my name is Nari when she's in this like dazed, unconscious state while hearing them argue like 5 times or something. So maybe so. But I mean, okay, it also is mentioned by like Viseresh or Asma earlier that the fewer people who know the name, the more power it has, especially if the person who owns the name doesn't even know it. That's why her name power, or that's why her
Right.
name had
Yeah.
so much power over her. So I don't think that's like happens or can even happen to the average person because their name is so well known by themselves and everyone around. Lesson there, don't give your kid a hidden name, or maybe do so you can control them later on. Don't tell them about it.
I've got a hot take. You
Okay,
ready for my hot take?
fizzled me, baby.
I think Muntadir should have just died at the end of the last book.
I think so too.
Muntadir, I mean, he was sort of interesting, right? I mean,
It was kind of
he had some.
interesting.
There were a couple really cool conversations that he had with Dara for sure, but I don't know. I feel like him getting stabbed with a poison blade at the end of book 2 kind of like necessitated all the magic to be gone out of Daevabad so that he could still live, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then it's like, okay, well now all the magic's gone out of Daevabad, and it's like, all right, so like Manaiza has like Ifrit blood magic, so she can do magic, but only once she gets the Ifrit blood magic, and it's like, okay, well she couldn't do magic, but then like Dara could do magic, and it all seems like so fluid and like flexible and just like all to
That's
serve the purpose of there not being magic in Daevabad until some people do have magic, which makes it all moot and kind of like, you know what I mean? I don't know.
That's
Maybe
why I
I'm
said at
looking
the
like
beginning
way
of
too hard into it,
no,
but
no, I don't think you are. That's why I said in the beginning of this that I think that Shakaborty kind of has some commitment issues. It's like, okay, Muntadir sacrifices himself. Let him die. Let Jamshed's rest of his arc be about struggling how to move on, realizing the loss, dealing with the trauma. Who is he now? Bereft of his lover. That's I think more interesting than him trying to get back and having Ollie being like, "What? They were together this
well,
whole
and like,
time?"
and what a way to increase the stakes and like the seriousness of this situation by having it so that Manaiza and Dara are as powerful as they can be. It would add to the complexity of like this city still
Totally.
being magical and like make it that much harder for Nari and Ali to impenetrate it and like or impregnate it and penetrate. Both of those
Just
words,
penetrate.
not great words. But you know what I mean, though. You know what I
I
mean.
do.
And it's like, but I mean, I don't want to like sit here and rewrite the book for Chakraborty because there are obviously like subtle details which would probably prove both of us wrong. But sitting where I'm at, I kind of agree with you. Where it's like, if we would have just killed Muntadir off, it might have made for a couple more interesting things to happen instead of like everybody's just fine at the end.
Right.
Like
we
I
were
thought,
only ever faced with kind of loss, with faux loss, faux
yeah,
grief. And then people would be like, "Oh, you're actually still alive." And then it was all happy again. It was like, man, I kind of like just kill him. Just kill him. Kill Dara, kill Muntadir, have some good old fashioned sacrificial death, and don't take away that power.
I don't know if killing Dara would have, and I don't have mixed feelings on Dara, but I think killing Dara, it wouldn't have. I would rather have a redemption arc, or at least the potential for one, You know what I mean? Than like totally kill him
But
off.
he
Like
could
he
come back, like his sacrifice to like give Daevabad back its magic or something by like giving a part of himself to everyone or something. That could have been like the end of his redemption arc, like realizing it, but realizing like also I've been used and also tricked into just being terrible, and maybe the world would be better off without me.
I mean, I would have been sad. Like I would
Yeah,
have
but
even
then
felt sad. Like
yeah, we would have had to have the killing of both of the Ifrit. You know, Aethma couldn't have gotten away with all of the Jinn, like soul canisters.
oh, Viseresh, you mean? Or
Oh
was it
yeah,
Ace?
Viseresh.
Yeah,
I
it was
think
yeah. It was Viseresh. Yeah.
yeah, Viseresh. Yeah. Um. So you know, it was Chakraborty did a good job, kind of wrapping up all those pieces. I think I would have just killed a lot more people, maybe. That's
When
just
in
me.
doubt, kill somebody.
Yep. Red wedding time.
Oof. It's funny you bring up Game of Thrones because it got me thinking about like the political intrigue in this trilogy, and I kind of touched on it on the episode before this one, but I really want to reiterate. I totally understand why it's all so necessary. Like why it's also necessary to have all these different factions and all this history. And I mean, I feel like every other conversation in these books is just, why did you do that? Oh, it's because of all this horrible shit, you know.
Right.
And it's a lot. It's a lot of these books. And at first, when you're first getting into all this, it's like, this is so much. This is so much to heap onto me. But it's not really heavy politics. It's more like family politics, and that's a different flavor
Yeah.
of them. You
It's
know,
like
it's
interpersonal
yeah,
relational.
and it's just different. I think that the only real big learning curve I had here was just remembering like the Ionle and the like the Gazira and the Deva and the, you know what I mean? Like just kind of like making sure I had everybody's names correct.
Hmm.
But then after that, I mean, about like 100 pages into the second book, I was pretty on board with everything. Kind of knew what was going on for the most part.
Yep. We definitely get a few surprises of like new characters and stuff. We get new characters and stuff that are introduced, like the pirate at the end
Oh
of this
yeah,
book, who I really liked actually, but
yeah,
it was an interesting, she became like a pretty big part of the story in many of the scenes following her introduction to the story.
yeah. She
And
went with Ali down to the Marid, or not down, but she
yeah,
went with Ali. She was
and it
cool.
was
Yeah.
interesting when he comes out, then she's just like, I'm alive somehow.
Yeah.
It's like, okay. Um, but I don't know. I just don't think the story needed more characters. I kept like reading her name and I was like, who is this? And then I'd look back like, oh, she was the pirate person who I really liked. It was just like, man, we have so many characters in this story.
Yeah, but I mean, with books like this, and you know, these big sweeping stories like this. I mean, you know, on the one hand, you want to just kind of have everything localized and just stick with the people that you know and stuff. And that's a rule that I've seen before in like writing. It's like, don't introduce, you know, major characters like too late in the game or anything like that. But it's also like, I don't know, they're gonna meet new people. You know, like
Yeah.
they're going to a different place. Like obviously they're
Yeah,
going to
you're
meet,
right.
and like if they're going to, then like why not make them interesting? You know, like you're the only bad part about that is that you latched onto somebody you felt like you didn't have enough time with, like Mishmish.
Well, it was
You
kind of
know?
confusing.
Oh, I guess you're
I
saying. Yeah, I
just kept
mean,
not remember. But I mean, you're right. I wouldn't have wanted the pirate to be removed. I really liked her. I thought she was awesome.
or less
So
interesting. You know,
yeah, she did
like
add to the story,
right.
and she was
Yeah,
a cool little like leverage to get the rest of the crew to mutiny against their evil captain, and it was the cool
yeah. I mean,
thing.
if you can
I'm
pull
just
off,
complaining for no
yeah,
reason. I really liked her.
yeah. I mean, if you can pull off an interesting character, I don't really care where they're at in the book. You
Yeah,
know, I mean,
straight up.
the only thing that bums me out is like not being able to spend enough time with them, like Mishmish.
I know, Mish Mish really done dirty. Can you imagine? Like the problem with flying, right, is you're up in the upper atmosphere and it's so cold.
Air
Mish
is really
Mish
thin.
has like five. Well, besides the air thin thing, he's got like fiery fur, so he's like the coziest cuddler
Oh
to be
yeah,
flying
yeah.
on the back of. He solves that problem. What a great pet.
Let's rank these. Give me your ranking.
Ooh, let's rank them. I'm gonna say two, three, one.
Yeah, that's mine too. No
Really?
way. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, and I'll give you my reason.
Let's hear it. Yeah.
Two, I had understood the story. I knew who we were working with. I knew the players involved. There was a lot of shaking of the snow globe. It was a fun,
A lot of
chaotic,
action.
tumultuous, a lot of action, and it was fairly simple. Three, because it was Chaos Land, a cool wrap up, cool characters, a lot of realization, a lot of power, a lot of removal power, just really interesting things happening all the time, and a cool ending of the story. And then one was very close behind three, but just one was very confusing. I spent a lot of that book trying to be like, okay, what is
Yeah.
happening? Who is this people's and those people and that, and who's this person's family? And it was very confusing. Give me your reasons.
Yeah, so I mean, two for a lot of the same reasons. I like the ending of two quite a bit. I like the time skip. Thought that was a really good idea. Nari's hospital building, like arc, was cool. There was a lot of
It was.
Muntadir. It was neat. We got a lot of Ollie. We got a lot of Zainab. You know, like the relationship
Mm-hmm.
between Ali and Zainab and Muntadir was really good. The
Yeah.
plotting scenes with Maniza and Kaveh and Dara was really cool. I liked all of those. Like just really solid conversations there. Yeah, Kingdom of Copper is really really great. Yeah, and then book three, I felt like it was just super long. Like it was just like really
So
really
long,
really
man.
long. There was a like the first. I don't know how many pages, but there's a really big chunk in the beginning where everybody's kind of just like recollecting themselves and thinking, and I don't hate that, but there's a lot of it.
It was a
But
lot of it.
it
We didn't
needed to
need
be
so
there.
much Cairo time.
I kind of think, I mean, the Cairo stuff was cool because I really liked that Nari and Ali were presented with an out. You know, that was really necessary, and I think it was really a good idea on Chakraborty's part to give them that out and say, like,
Yeah, but
if you want, you could run this apothecary, you could be together, and you could have your room full of books, and you could just like,
but
and
no, they couldn't. And Ollie even
well, no, I
mentions it.
agree with
Like,
you.
we've got Maniza who's gonna want that seal back. Like, our time
I
here is very
agree with
limited.
you. I agree with you that they couldn't have from a reader's standpoint, but from the character's standpoint, it's like giving them that temptation makes the whole,
Yeah,
you know what I mean? I thought that
it
was
makes their
really
decision
good.
to leave more selfless and
Right,
deeper.
yeah, I
Yeah,
thought
you're
it was
right.
really
It
good.
becomes a character thing, not a necessity. Okay, okay,
Yeah,
I'm with
but
you. But
still
still,
a lot of kind of like hanging out for the beginning of this book, and then
yeah,
I just felt like there wasn't as much action at the end of this of Empire of Gold, but that's fine. It was very satisfying, but it just felt like there were kind of like pockets of a little bit of boredom between really big hills of action and cool things happening, and
yeah.
but then yeah, book one. I was like 2/3 of the way through book one, and I was like, oh man, what did Chad and I get ourselves into? Like this is, I'm not gonna be able to remember any of this. Like this is so complicated and so. It was giving me like kind of like Lycanius vibes,
Same.
where I was just like, but I mean, more in the way where it was like. Because with Lycanius, I was like, I want to understand this. Like, I'm trying to
Who is our
understand this. Like,
protagonist?
what is the problem here? You know what I mean? Like, what are we trying to do? And then it gets like a lot clearer, especially because like the end of the book, the first book is madness, just total
Madness.
madness. And I really like the end of the first book a lot, and I like the beginning of the first book a lot too. But then it just the middle kind of like drug out a little bit for me. Like once
Yeah, it gets a
Dara
little
and
mashed up.
yeah, like once Dara and Nari get to Daevabad, it's just like, wait, we still have like 400 pages, or no, no, we
Yeah.
have like 250 pages left in this book. Like, what is happening right now? you know,
Yeah, I think if their
like,
travel scene would have been a little longer, their love scene, maybe love a little bit drawn out a little bit more, I think it would have aided the rest of the story and kind of removed some of the pockets of like, okay, here we are.
yeah, but I mean, on the whole, this series was fantastic, like, really good.
Fantastic. And this is Chakraborty's debut books. Like,
Yeah,
incredible debut
that's
books.
really
Like, what a
impressive.
huge chunk she bit off and managed it like a champ.
Yeah, I wrote down like a final verdict. I kind of wrote it for this one, but it kind of covers everything. I wrote, it's an immersive and thoroughly enjoyable read, if a bit confusing at times with its presentation of factions and the relationships and histories between them. I didn't feel fully on board with what was going on until well into the second book, but from there I found myself engaged and eager to see what happened next. Terrific characters that I loved rooting for and felt both surprised at and happy with being surprised about.
I like that. That's very nice. And you know, as much as I was kind of harsh about the ending of this book and how Shakaborty just didn't have the commitment of killing people, we also need to think of
I mean, she
this.
committed to killing Maniza at least.
Yeah, that's true. Um,
But go on.
and Gassan. We also need to keep
Gassan
in
had to
mind
go.
he had to go, man. He was terrible. But I mean,
Anybody
that's what
would
I
have
thought about
killed
Dara.
Gassan. Go ahead.
Okay,
Sorry, I
so
keep interrupting you.
let's think about the world that this book, the final book, was released into. This was released June 11th, 2020, right in the middle of the pandemic. If the world ever needed a happy ending full of hope and continuance
Right.
and people overcoming the bad and living on with their past, like that was the time for it. So I think that there was probably a little bit of like giving the world what it needed at that time going on here as well, because the world was definitely in need of a happy ending and hope.
Yeah, I really, really like that, and there's a lot of hope here, and I wasn't expecting it. I seriously, I thought this was going to end in like kind of like basically tragedy. Like I thought this was going to be like
Yeah.
a pretty sad ending, at least like ambiguous and kind of not unsatisfactory, but just kind of like ugh, like
Yeah.
jeez, like everybody died. But
But
no,
it was ended with hope, but it was also ended with a lot of realization of the suffering and the loss that did occur. Like Maniza went on a killing rampage
yeah.
when she was in Rain. Like when Dara walks into her in the arena, just like torturing and killing all the nobles and just
Oh
blood
my
sticky
God, yeah, that
congealing
was
around his
ugh.
feet. Wolf. That was disgusting. So there was a lot of loss as well. And so there was definitely like we move on with things in the right place, but a lot of healing needs to happen. And that was cool. It just added to the hope. It added depth to the hope and meaning to it.
Yeah, I'm really happy that we read these together, Chad. We are on a roll.
We
We are
are on a
on
roll.
a roll.
I'm glad specifically that I read these with you. Like if I would have read these alone, I wouldn't have enjoyed them nearly half as much. But having the opportunity to sit down, hash them all out, figure them all out, what is going on, what do I like, what do I not, really added to the kind of the value that I
Yeah.
ascribe to this story. So thank you, Evan, for picking a good series for us to read and also being with me to help my idiot brain navigate these waters because man, it's definitely helped.
Yeah, I'm happy that you were here with me too, Chad. I'm so glad we got to experience these books together. Just like at the end of all the series that we read, I'm super sad to say goodbye to Nari and Ali and Jamshid and
Not Dara.
not really Dara, but I am really this is a good.
Definitely Mish Mish.
I'm feeling the hangover for sure. You
Yeah.
know.
Oh, I forgot to grab myself a bottle of whiskey. I usually have like a shot to
Oh
see
yeah,
the end of this end of the series off with, but I'll raise my water glass here, keeping it sober.
we'll drink some tea.
Yeah.
You know, we'll brew up some tea. But everybody, thank you so much for listening to our recap of Book 3 in the Daevabad trilogy and for listening to all these episodes in this magnificent series of books. Can't wait to see what else S.A. Chakraborty does because I'm sure it'll be even better than this.
And on that note, she has agreed graciously to come on the podcast for an interview to answer our questions. So we'll be doing that in the next week or two. So if you have any questions that you would like us to ask her, please email them to book.reviews.kill@gmail.com. And we'll make sure that that question gets answered. And stay tuned for that episode because it's always a really cool kind of period to put on the sentence of an episode of just talking to the author, getting to kind of peer into the brain behind the story. And I don't know, I really value that we get to talk to the authors, and I think it's really special.
Yeah, we get to talk about this for just a little bit longer. It's like the actual last episode.
Yeah, exactly. We kind of get to set it off into the sunset twice, which is always great.
Until then, Chad, it's been a blast. Everybody listening, we really appreciate you being here. And of course, happy reading.
Bye, everybody.